Hello everybody, this is Dr. Harshad Argekar. I am going to talk upon how to approach a person or an adolescent who's come to you with a cubitus valgus deformity. Now the patient will generally present with a progressive deformity of one of the elbows. He will have given history of trauma many years ago for which either some treatment had been taken or not been taken, but over a period of few months the patient will become alright. He will say that he had no restriction of movement and he was able to do all his work. Only after the second growth spurt, when they reach the adolescent phase, they notice that there is a deformity in the elbow which is progressive. The deformity may have been there before the growth spurt also, but it generally is non-progressive at that point of time because the child is not growing. After the adolescent growth spurt, because of the sudden increase in height, the valgus deformity the valgus deformity increases and patient may get a prominent medial epicondyle giving rise to a cosmetic deformity, and sometimes he may complain of deformity of the medial two fingers indicating ulnar nerve involvement in the form of a tardy ulnar nerve palsy. These children generally do not have any significant functional problems. They have a good range of motion and they are able to carry out all their daily activities without much problem. Only problem is either the finger deformity with numbness or the prominence of the medial epicondyle giving rise to a cosmetic problem. Now the test to distinguish between a non-union lateral condyle and other elbow problems is the 3-point bony discrimination. Now it is very important that you palpate the epicondyles properly because other bony prominences can be mistaken to be the lateral epicondyle. Now the way to palpate is to go from the humerus and then palpate the lateral supracondylar ridge downwards till the most lateral prominent bony point. This is the lateral epicondyle. Similarly on the medial side, the tip of the olecranon also has to be started palpating from the olecranon shaft, from the ulna shaft, and going proximally up to the most prominent point, which is the tip of the olecranon. As you can make out in this slide, the triangle is completely disrupted on the left side. Be sure that you don't mistake this point as the most bony point. This will be wrong. Other findings include there may be thickening and irregularity of the supracondylar ridges. Mainly the lateral supracondylar ridge is affected. The medial supracondylar ridge is not thickened or irregular because it is not involved in the fracture. There may or may not be tenderness at the point of the lateral condyle. Internal rotation may or may not be increased, and there may be a small flexion deformity or some minor hyperextension. That is what you would see generally in the X-ray. As you can make out, the medial supracondylar ridge is neither thickened nor is it irregular, but on the lateral side you will find thickening and irregularity of the supracondylar ridges. You may feel a small bony nodule which may or may not be mobile on the lateral side. Also, if you see the joint line, it is not horizontal, it is obliquely directed, but more or less the joint is maintained. So on the lateral view, you will not see the clear space between olecranon and the trochlea because the joint line is not horizontal, and that is what is the cause of the valgus deformity. What are the other conditions which can give rise to a cubitus valgus? Of course, non-union lateral condyle is the most common cause, and you know the findings. Thickening of the supracondylar ridge on the lateral side with full range of motion and disrupted 3-point bony relationship. In lateral epiphyseal growth arrest, you will have similar findings and the deformity will be progressive. So you may not be clearly able to distinguish between non-union as well as between non-union and lateral epiphyseal growth arrest because the findings will be more or less similar. Lateral condyle malunion is also a cause of cubitus valgus, but in this condition the elbow range of motion is restricted. The elbow is not fully mobile because malunion will cause joint irregularity and restriction of motion. Rare causes of cubitus valgus deformity include a malunited medial condyle, where the medial condyle has gone and united little bit more distally. This will give rise to a non-progressive valgus deformity. AVN of the trochlea again is a non-progressive valgus deformity, and congenital conditions like Turner syndrome or Nuhan syndrome can also give rise to valgus, but these conditions obviously will be present from birth. Now you could classify them as two types, the progressive valgus deformities and the non-progressive or the static valgus deformities, depending on the diagnosis. Non-union lateral condylar growth arrest and lateral condylar malunion all have progressive deformities, whereas malunion of medial condyle and AVN of trochlea will have a static valgus deformity which does not increase at the adolescent growth spurt. Radiologically, you can have the Milch type 1, which is a lateral injury and does not give rise to too much of valgus, and Milch type 2, where the fracture line goes into the trochlea, and these are the ones which cause the valgus deformity. Tardy ulnar nerve palsy occurs because of stretching of the ulnar nerve over the more prominent medial epicondyle. You will get clawing of the medial two fingers, and this is corrected by anterior transposition of the ulnar nerve either in the submuscular or subcutaneous plane. Now you have to remember that to mention that you will release the ulnar nerve proximally up to the arcade of Struthers before doing the anterior transposition. Now, whenever you are doing a corrective osteotomy, you can't do a open or a closed wedge osteotomy here because of the problems about axis malalignment. If you can see in this picture, if you can do just an open wedge osteotomy, the axis of the humerus and the axis of the forearm will change. You can't just open this wedge. Also, you will make the medial epicondyle more prominent than what it was before. So not only do you have to do a transverse osteotomy, you also have to do a displacement osteotomy. The distal fragment has to be displaced into the middle of the medullary canal of the humerus, then the axis alignment becomes more or less normal. And as you can see here in this pre-op and post-op x-ray, you just need to fix it with 2K wires. You don't address the malunion at all. You don't address the non-union at all. You leave it as it is, and this child will have full functional range of motion. Can you attempt osteosynthesis in a non-union? Yes, but there are certain preconditions. You have to do it early when the deformity or when the injury is less than 1 year old, because at that point of time the fragments are still identifiable and you will be able to put everything back together as what it was before. If it is more than a year old, then the fragment you may not be able to put back. You may cause AVN of the fragment, you may cause malreduction resulting in restricted range of motion, and also if it is old and you don't graft it, you might still result in failure of